Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get you the core knowledge from your sources. Today, we're tackling an ingredient that honestly sets off alarm bells for a lot of people, alcohol, specifically benzyl alcohol, or BA. You see it on a cosmetic label, and the immediate thought is often drying, harsh. But, our sources, they paint a really different picture, more like a surprisingly efficient workhorse, especially in high-end skincare and even sunscreens.
That's exactly right. If you've ever, put a product back just because you saw that A word somewhere in the ingredient list, this deep dive is definitely for you. Our mission today is really to get past that initial fear. We need to unpack the many jobs BA does, everything from stopping your cream from going bad to actually helping those pricey serums penetrate better. And the absolute key here, the context that changes everything, is concentration. BA is almost always used at very low levels. It's incredibly versatile because it's used sparingly.
And what really stood out from the sources is this critical difference. Benzyl alcohol is consistently described as being, gentler. It's actually suited for formulas that need to stay stable and hydrating. That's just worlds apart from something like Alcohol Denat, right? Which is designed to be harsh, to strip oil and evaporate instantly. We're talking about two totally different animals, chemically speaking.
Absolutely. So let's pin down what benzyl alcohol actually is. It's an organic alcohol, yes, but used in cosmetics, typically at concentrations capping out around maybe 1%. And what's really fascinating, I think, is where it comes from. It has this sort of dual identity.
Yeah, I found that interesting, too. It can be natural. You find BA in everyday things, fruits like apples, apricots, raspberries, even flowers like jasmine. When it's sourced naturally like that, it's usually extracted using methods like steam distillation. And that process actually contributes a very mild, pleasant scent, which is, one of its minor roles.
It is, yeah. But think about large-scale production. Relying purely on natural sources, which can vary quite a bit depending on the harvest or season, it makes consistency really difficult. So for that stability, for the higher purity and the reliable quality that cosmetic formulators need, BA is more often made synthetically in a lab, usually starting from toluene. This way, they ensure every single bottle of that lotion or serum performs exactly the same. Predictability is key.
Okay, so natural origins, but synthetic production for quality control. Makes sense. Now let's get into its functions. The sources listed, I think it was 9 distinct roles. That's a pretty packed resume for just one ingredient. We probably can't go through all 9 in detail, but let's hit the really big ones, the ones that make BA so, essential and maybe a bit surprising.
Definitely. First up, and this is probably the most critical for safety, its job as a preservative. Think about skincare products, especially things like serums or toners that have a lot of water. They're basically ideal environments for bacteria, mold, yeast, things you really don't want in there. BA stops those microbes from growing. It extends the shelf life, keeps the product safe and effective. Honestly, this role is non-negotiable.
Right. It's like the product's invisible bodyguard. Keeps the bad stuff out. Okay, so that's safety. The second big one really speaks to how the product works. BA acts as a solvent. You've got all these complex ingredients in modern skincare, vitamins, peptides, plant extracts. They need to dissolve properly and stay evenly mixed together, right?
Exactly. BA creates that stable, consistent environment for them. It ensures everything is distributed evenly throughout the formula. Without a good solvent, your active ingredients could clump up, separate out.
Or just sink to the bottom, meaning you wouldn't get the benefit you paid for every time you use it.
Precisely. So it's crucial for the product's texture, its stability, and ultimately its effectiveness.
Okay, so we have safety with the preservative role and performance with the solvent role. Now the third one. This one I think is the most surprising, and it should make you, listening at home, maybe rethink your expensive serums. BA acts as a skin penetration enhancer. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, you can think of benzyl alcohol almost like a temporary key or maybe a delivery helper for those high-value ingredients. It interacts with the skin's outer barrier just for a short time and slightly reduces its resistance. This little nudge allows ingredients like, say, vitamin C or peptides to get deeper into the epidermis.
Deeper where they can actually do their job rather than just sitting on the surface.
That's the idea.
Oh.
Get the actives to where they need to be.
Wow. Okay, so BA isn't just passively preserving things, it's actively boosting the delivery of the other ingredients. That does sound potentially like a double-edged sword, though. If it helps good stuff get in, could it also help irritants penetrate more easily, especially for sensitive skin?
That's a really important question. And the answer, again, comes back to that magic word, concentration. Because BA is used at such low levels, typically under that 1% mark, this enhancing effect is generally mild, controlled, and temporary. At these low concentrations, the benefit of getting those active ingredients deeper usually far outweighs the slight risk of irritation for most people. Now, if a concentration were much higher, yes, that risk profile would absolutely change.
Context is everything.
Got it. Okay, so those are the big three: preservative, solvent, penetration enhancer. We should probably quickly mention some of the other roles too, just to show its versatility. Things like being a stabilizer, an emulsion enhancer, basically keeping creams and lotions from separating into oil and water.
Keeping that texture consistent.
And also acting as a mild antioxidant itself, protecting the formula, and even a color and fixative in makeup, like stopping lipstick color from fading. It really does wear a lot of hats.
It really does. So let's shift from what it does to where it does it. Let's talk specific products. Sunscreen is a huge one. Why is BA so vital in sunscreens? Well, I guess the preservation part is obvious. Sunscreens get exposed to heat, moisture, thrown in bags. They need to stay stable.
Definitely crucial. But there's a deeper reason, linking back to its solvent function. Many of the most effective UV filters, things like avobenzone or octinoxate, are oil-soluble. They need to be perfectly dissolved and evenly suspended in the formula to spread properly on your skin and form a consistent protective film. If they aren't dissolved well, they can actually clump together on a microscopic level. And if that happens, you get gaps in your protection, patchy coverage.
Meaning you're not actually getting the SPF level promised on the bottle.
Exactly. BA, as a solvent, helps ensure that UV filter dispersion is uniform, giving you consistent, reliable protection. It's fundamental to the sunscreen actually working as intended.
That's huge. So it's directly tied to the effectiveness of arguably the most important skincare product we use. And just touching on safety again, the sources were clear that regulatory bodies like the FDA in the US and the EMA in Europe have approved BA for use at these low, controlled concentrations. They consider it safe for most people when formulated correctly.
That's right. Okay, let's pivot to hair care. This is another area where seeing alcohol can cause immediate concern. People worry about drying out their hair, making it brittle.
Yeah, and that's a valid concern if we were talking about certain other alcohols, like denatured alcohol.
Precisely. But in shampoos, conditioners, styling products, BA is primarily there, again, as that preservative and solvent. Because it's used at such low levels, it does its job keeping the product stable, preventing bacterial growth without having those harsh, stripping effects on the hair or the scalp. Unlike Alcohol Denat, it doesn't aggressively remove moisture. So, no, benzyl alcohol at typical use levels in hair care is not considered bad for your hair's health or hydration.
That is genuinely a relief to hear. Okay, let's speak directly to the listener now. Maybe someone with dry or sensitive skin who is still feeling a bit wary about seeing benzyl alcohol on an ingredient list. What's the practical advice? How can they tell if it's okay for them when they're looking at a product?
Right. If you have dry skin, your focus is naturally on moisture, barrier repair, things like glycerin, ceramides, rich oils. The simplest, most practical guideline here is about where benzyl alcohol appears on the ingredient list. Ingredients are listed in descending order of concentration. So if you see benzyl alcohol listed way down near the end of the list, you can be pretty confident its concentration is very low, likely under that 1% threshold.
And that position tells you its main role is just preservation and maybe helping dissolve something minor. It's not there as a primary active ingredient or a harsh solvent.
Exactly. That placement is your best clue. The formula's main players, those hydrating and emollient ingredients like hyaluronic acid, shea butter, jojoba oil, they should be much higher up, near the top. BA in that case is just working quietly in the background, making sure the whole thing stays safe and stable.
Location, location, location. That's a great actionable tip. Fantastic. Okay, let's move into the comparisons now. We've sort of danced around it, but let's put BA head-to-head with the other alcohols you might see on labels, both the bad ones and the good ones.
Yeah, this is really where a lot of the confusion comes from, isn't it? Why are they all called alcohol if they act so differently? Chemically, they all share a specific structure, that hydroxyl group. Oh, 'tis H. But their overall size, shape, and how they behave in a formula, worlds apart.
Okay, let's start with the ones that often deserve their bad reputation. Alcohol Denat, also called denatured alcohol, and isopropyl alcohol, the drying ones.
These are the classic examples. Alcohol Denat's main job is often as a solvent, yes, but also as an astringent. It helps reduce surface oiliness, gives that tight feeling, and makes products feel like they dry down instantly. To do that, it has to be volatile, evaporate quickly, and it tends to strip lipids, the natural oils from the skin's surface. That's why it feels drying and can be irritating, especially at higher concentrations.
And isopropyl alcohol? Rubbing alcohol, essentially.
Similar story. Much more focused on being an antiseptic, a sanitizer. very effective at killing germs, but also very drying and potentially irritating for skincare use,
Yeah.
unless it's in a very targeted, specific application like a spot treatment, maybe.
So the key difference isn't just about irritation levels, it's about their intended function in the formula. Alcohol Denat is meant to degrease and evaporate fast. BA is meant to preserve and stabilize, maybe help things penetrate a bit.
Exactly.
Right.
BA is a larger molecule, less volatile, and used at concentrations where it simply doesn't have that aggressive stripping effect.
Right. Now, let's flip to the other side, the so-called good alcohols, the fatty alcohols. How does benzyl alcohol compare to things like cetyl alcohol, stearyl alcohol, or cetyl alcohol?
This is another crucial distinction because they sound similar but do completely different things.
If benzyl alcohol is the behind-the-scenes manager, what are the fatty alcohols?
Fatty alcohols are totally different beasts. They're usually derived from vegetable oils or fats like coconut or palm oil. They are large, waxy, solid materials. Their job in a formula is primarily as emulsifiers, helping oil and water mix, and as thickeners and emollients. They are what give creams and lotions that rich, creamy, smooth, and fundamentally moisturizing feel.
Ah, okay. So cetyl alcohol actually adds moisture and richness, makes the product feel substantial and conditioning on the skin.
Yes, it contributes directly to the moisturizing properties and the texture.
Whereas benzyl alcohol, our organic alcohol, is there providing the stability and preservation for that lovely creamy mixture created by the fatty alcohols.
Precisely. They serve completely different, often complementary roles. You'll very often find both types in the same product working together. A fatty alcohol for texture and moisture, and benzyl alcohol for preservation.
That clarifies things immensely. Okay, one last crucial area, safety and side effects. We need the caveats.
We do. So to recap, at the typical low concentrations used in cosmetics, benzyl alcohol is generally considered safe. Importantly, it's non-comedogenic, meaning it doesn't tend to clog pores on its own.
But what happens if someone is particularly sensitive, or maybe if a product uses a bit too much BA, perhaps pushing that 1% boundary?
While well tolerated by most, some people, especially those with very sensitive skin, rosacea, or maybe a compromised skin barrier, could experience some irritation. That might show up as redness, maybe some itching, or a mild stinging or burning sensation when they apply the product. Higher concentrations definitely increase this risk.
And dryness. Is that ever a real concern with BA?
Generally, no, not at standard cosmetic levels. Unlike Alcohol Denat, it's not inherently drying. However, if someone experiences irritation, that irritation response could potentially lead to some localized dryness or tightness. Rarely, true allergic contact dermatitis like hives or swelling can occur, but it's uncommon.
What about acne? Does it help or hurt? It has some antibacterial properties, right?
It does have some mild antibacterial action, which contributes to its preservative function. But its role in treating acne is very much secondary or adjunct. You wouldn't rely on BA to clear breakouts. The main acne-fighting ingredients are things like salicylic acid or benzyl peroxide. BA might help preserve the formula they're in, but for acne-prone skin, the usual advice applies. Patch test new products, introduce them slowly.
Good advice always. Okay, let's wrap this up.
So putting it all together, benzyl alcohol really emerges as this highly effective multitasking ingredient. It's essential for product stability, safety, and even performance, provided it's used within those regulated, low concentration limits. Its safety and effects are totally dependent on how much is used. When used responsibly by formulators, it makes products safer and often work better.
And the key takeaway for you, the listener, is pretty straightforward then. Don't just react to the word alcohol on an ingredient list. Take a second look. Ask yourself, which alcohol is it? Is it benzyl alcohol, or maybe a fatty alcohol like cetyl alcohol, or is it alcohol denat? And then, critically, where does it appear on the list? If benzyl alcohol is tucked away near the bottom, you can generally feel confident it's just doing its necessary job as a preserver and stabilizer and isn't likely to cause issues.
Exactly. Context is everything.
And let's finish with a final thought to chew on, circling back to that surprising function we discussed, the penetration enhancement. Since BA is valued partly because it can help other ingredients get deeper into the skin, think about this next time you're choosing or using a product, especially an expensive serum packed with actives. Could the presence of a small, well-formulated amount of benzyl alcohol in one serum actually make its active ingredients, like those vitamins or peptides you paid for, significantly more effective than in another serum that doesn't use it, forcing those actives to struggle more to get past the skin barrier? It prompts the question, is the benzyl alcohol in your favorite product not just keeping it safe, but maybe unlocking, say, 10%, 20%, maybe even more of the potential power of everything else in that bottle? It's definitely something to consider.